Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. I'm in one of those situations where I'm working on something and really need the thing that I'm working on to make the job that I'm doing easier, but the thing that I'm working on doesn't work. Go figure. The vise on the bandsaw uses this threaded rod to advance this piece of angle iron up and push whatever part you're cutting up against another piece of angle iron. This piece of angle iron is so bent that if I try and put something round in it, it just squirts up out of the top of it because all this is loose. There's supposed to be a 1/2 inch shim in there to make this so that it tightens down fairly securely, but it doesn't, and so you have to leave that loose, and that lets that rock back, and it's just a bad deal. So one of the things I need to do is repair the handle, because the original handle that came with it consisted of this piece of plastic wrapped around this metal collar, which has a set screw hole in it that was drilled about 20 degrees off angle. And when I looked at the collar to see if this was repairable, and I pulled this plastic off, this collar is not repairable. It's junk. So I'm going to cut a new collar out of this piece of bar stock. And boy, would it be nice to have a bandsaw to cut this piece of bar stock off. Now I could probably do it with the grinder and a cutoff wheel, but I don't know that the grinder and the cutoff wheel is going to be that good a deal. So I'm going to fall back on my old favorite, the hacksaw. But before I do that, I think I'm going to change out this blade. Now this particular hacksaw is a Klein. I inherited it from my father. He bought me one, and then when he died I got his too. So now I have two of them, which I like very much. I have one little problem. This tensioning screw, you have to tighten it down a lot further than I can tighten it by hand. But that's a minor thing. It's been that way for the 40-some years combined that Dad and I had it. Hard to believe that we had something 40 years, but it's true. Okay, I'm using an 18 tooth per inch blade, and it says thick metal. I think that's probably a pretty good estimation of what it should be. Let's see. I need 6 inches of bar stock. I marked that off at 6 inches. I'm going to cut it off. At least I'm going to try. Batteries died halfway through the cut. But I was able to finish cutting off the piece of steel by hand. And you can see that the cut is fairly square. These Lennox blades are very nice. They're bimetallic, which means they have harder teeth on them and a good tough back so that they don't break easily. If you can see at the end, this cut kind of sawed back and forth because I was changing the angle of the hacksaw. The reason I was doing that is as I'm going through this, cutting here and then cutting like that and then cutting like that, it uses different sets of muscles so that I'm able to rest one set while I'm doing the other. Only took I don't know, maybe 3 minutes to cut through this piece of steel. Seemed like a lot longer, but just about 3 minutes. I like to take the drill bit and the chuck out so that I don't smack my hand into them by accident. And I like to keep the chuck key in the chuck. Now we break out the new live tailstock. I've had this for months and never opened the bag, so I'm pleasantly surprised to find that it's in a little plastic container. The other one came in a cardboard box. And I kept it in the cardboard box and still have the cardboard box, and I'll still keep it in this. That plastic one's a lot more durable. Probably won't have anywhere near the problems with closing and opening as I did with the other one. When I was doing the knurling, this one snapped off. We've already talked about that. And I'm thinking, okay, I might be able to make something else out of this because, you know, waste not, want not at old Sneelock's workshop. So this one will be put back in the box. And stored away for that time that I have nothing better to do than to make an adaptation. The thicker this section is where I put the set screw in, the better, because then I have more threads for it to engage. And since it's a vise, and I think somebody actually wallowed this hole out by over tightening it with a pair of pliers or something and causing that set screw to push right out to the side of this, because the hole is oval shaped. And even though I'm sure the tap wasn't done correctly, tapping an oval hole is terribly difficult. Extruding an oval hole out of a tapped hole, difficult, but not as impossible as tapping an oval hole. This is going to take quite a while to do, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish turning this down. I'm going to have kind of a shoulder here, step down to about maybe 5/8 diameter, and then expand back out so that I can put the bar out on the end of this. I'm debating whether to put a bar or a wheel on it. Wheel has kind of a nice feel to it, but really when you're cranking the thing down, you really only need a bar. So we'll see how it goes. As I was cutting this, I realized that I really only needed to have this piece be solid. The rest of it can be a hollow tube. A piece of 1/2-inch pipe would extend that out very nicely. The bore on a piece of 1/2-inch pipe is 625, 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to turn down a stub shaft on the end of this, and that's going to be about 5/8 of an inch long. This bar clamp's going to be a donor, and I'll take off a piece of pipe off the end of it. Then I can press this over the end of that 5/8 tenon that I'm going to put on the end of this piece of steel and have my extension out 6 inches like I want. I weld my handle onto this. I'll have more than enough strength in this piece of steel tubing to tighten up that vise quite well, and it'll save me a whole lot of turning. I need to go just a little bit deeper. There. That'll take it up flush to the wall of the casting. Should lock it in there just right. Okay, we have our boss made. I have my coupling made. That fits down into that piece of pipe quite nicely. Slips over the end of the screw shaft. Now, this goes into a bore in the back of the casting, and this face is at an angle. So I can't have this rub up against the face like I want it to. I'm going to need to make an adapter, kind of a bearing for this to ride against. But when this pushes against the wall of the casting. That's why you can see this edge is all worn down. It's been running against that cast iron casting. So I'm going to cut this a little bit long because I want to true up the ends of this on the lathe. I need an overall length of 6 inches. 6 1/8 should be plenty. I don't need to cut off a whole lot on the lathe. Now I want to have this square, this end square, so when it butts up against that, it holds it straight, so when I do the weld I don't have a wobble in my handle any more than I absolutely have to. I'm probably going to have a little bit because the inside of this pipe isn't a dead fit. It's a close fit. Now everything's going to butt up nice and square. Now this pipe is galvanized. Not a problem. I mean, it's going to be okay being galvanized, except I don't want it galvanized. When I go to weld it, galvanized is always a problem. So I'm going to put it in some vinegar and strip off the galvanized. Should take about an hour. That 1/2 inch piece of galvanized pipe's been in the vinegar overnight. I left it sit in there an hour thinking it was going to react a lot quicker than what it did, but overnight the zinc is all gone and I'll be able to weld on that. See? Nice black iron. Just got a film of dirt on top of it from where the stuff settled on it in the bath. We'll take it up and rinse it off in the sink. Well, I got the 2 pieces all ready to weld, and we'll take care of that this morning. But it won't be in time for today's video. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.